regret your own rhetoric here?
Regret rhetoric? What I've said are facts. Again, I'm a history teacher.
I think that
hold on
the
for a
rhetoric
second,
that I'm.
Abby.
Well, let me explain my question. Let me just explain my
I understand
question.
quite clearly what
I'm
saying.
asking is.
What is good, family? It's your boy Rashad, the Black Anomaly here. So today I'm gonna be reacting to this lady who is in hot water. Stacey Davis, Black Union leader in Chicago, teachers union, has been caught red-handed. In the past, she's been not supportive, a staunch advocate against school choice and private schools in Chicago. And now she's been caught red-handed, blood on the hands with the knife in her hand. Her own son is going to a Catholic school in Chicago. You busted. A lot of people getting on her tail for this. Even CNN, super hyper liberal CNN, is getting on her. They even got a black woman on her case. They already knew how to come correct. Look, we about to go ahead and react to this. Let's get into it.
Tonight, the head of the Chicago Teachers Union is facing intense backlash after it was revealed that her eldest son is enrolled in a private Catholic school. Now, the reason that this is at all controversial for some people is because Stacey Davis Gates has championed the city's public school system while consistently voicing strong opposition to private education. Now, last year, she underscored her position on the issue, saying, quote, "I can't advocate on behalf of public education without it taking root in my own household."
Oh, that was a lie.
And joining me now is Stacey Davis Gates. Stacey, thank you for being here. We wanted to have you on so you could help explain what happened here. You've likened in the past private schools of today to, quote, segregation academies of the Jim Crow South.
Segregation academies. Private schools. You see that? Private schools. Okay. Like, look, you know what? Let's keep going. I'll chat more. I might be interrupting the video every now and again, but that's crazy.
Why then send your child to a private school after speaking out so publicly against it?
You sending your kid to a private school.
I didn't speak out against private schools.
To a segregation
I spoke out
academy.
against school choice. School choice and private schools are two different entities.
In your tweet, you describe basically.
How is private school not school choice? Let's keep going.
Basically, you've described private schools of the North. That was literally your language. But you've also said this, that school choice was the choice of racists. I think at the end of the day, people are asking here about whether the rhetoric matches your actions. What do you use to that?
It doesn't.
Well,
Point blank.
That if we understand the desegregation of schools post Brown v. the Board of Education, we also understand that school districts in the South in particular closed down entire school districts, offered money to families, white families, so they could get accepted into private schools. That is, in fact, the origin of school choice in America. And I know that the right wing wants to obscure that in the same way that they want to tell us that slavery was a job training program.
So you see the strategy here, right? So, well, hey, don't focus on me and my child being hypocrites. I mean, it's not really the child's fault, but y'all know what I'm saying. Don't focus on me being a hypocrite, but focus on the right wing and conservatives who were racist for coming up with school choice in the past. And then also focus on the fact that in Florida, they were teaching in Black history how slavery was a jobs training program, which never really happened. I mean, there's all kinds of information on there. I might do a video about that so y'all could get more information on that too, in case you believe this nonsense they said about Florida and teaching Black history and how it was a jobs training program or whatever nonsense she's spouting off. I know like all about that, so I actually might make a video about that. But it's just all of this deflection. All of this, it's like she got the shield up. She's just blocking everything. It's like, sis, you're saying how racist this is, but your kid is going to private school now, and she hadn't even answered that yet. Like, why? Are you racist now? Because your kid's going to private school, so you, by your logic, you're a segregationist. Like, by your logic, you support Jim Crow. You see how this doesn't make sense? Like, let's keep going.
Look, I understand the history that you're talking about, and I myself attended public school my entire life. But I think one of the issues here is actually something that you yourself raised. You wrote a letter to your colleagues and you said that our critics want you to believe that, quote, school choice is a black and white issue that lacks nuance and hard choices for people like us, black families, especially when you are parenting a black boy in America. You wrote that to explain why you chose to take your child out of public school for a sports program at a private school. The question I think your critics are asking is why not afford that nuance to the families who might live in the south side of Chicago and in other major cities, and they want the same choice that you were able to afford to give to your child?
Because she don't care, man. You could take one look. I mean, okay, look. You can take, guys, look at this lady's face. You can take one look and see hypocrite all over her face. She has the look of a fake person. So, of course, she's caught red-handed and she doesn't care. She's literally supporting one thing openly and is advocating for this like daily, like all over Twitter and all this stuff. But at the same time, she's doing something entirely different. So what does that tell you? You know the saying, actions speak louder than words. Talk is cheap, y'all.
So a couple of things. Number one, I have 3 children.
I guarantee you she blames racism. I guarantee that comes up. I guarantee it comes up.
And all 3 children have attended public school, and my youngest 2 are still public school students. The second thing is that over 90% of my neighbors in my zip code send their children into schools outside of our zip code, outside of our neighborhood. And this is an issue that black Chicagoans, black families in Chicagoans, deal with on a very regular basis, and in fact for generations. This is not an issue of just Stacey Davis Gates and her family. Quite frankly, this is an issue especially for middle-class black families all across this country, where the public accommodation is obsolete, just like the grocery store in our communities is obsolete, just like the healthcare provisions in our community are obsolete. What I am saying, and what we have said very clearly as a union for a very long time now, is that the public accommodation has to be invested and resourced in black communities because we have been defunded and destabilized in those same communities. So when we talk about choice, Abby, what we're talking about is a decision between Frosted Flakes and Cheerios. But in Chicago, and especially in black neighborhoods, it's a decision with 0 and 0. And that's not a choice. That is, quite frankly, an ultimatum.
So, okay, let me pause it right there. So, here's something that I don't get. So, she says destabilized. So, I would challenge somebody to let me know what the heck she's talking about. As far as I know, public education has received more money in Chicago. Like, that's usually what happens, is they get more money, not less. I mean, it's logical because there's usually more people, and they therefore also get more money. They're able to tax more, they get more money. That's just how it usually works out. So I haven't heard anything about any type of defunding of the education system, which is actually the main point. Now, she also brought up healthcare, which doesn't make any sense to bring up in this circumstance. And also, like, the grocery stores and stuff like that. Like, okay, the grocery stores, like, there's been, like, Walmarts have closed and stuff like that, and Aldi's and stuff like that. That really don't have nothing to do with, like, the government destabilization. That's, like, due to crime and whatnot. So it's like, hey, blame your mayor for that, a black man. I mean, what can I say? Brandon Johnson. I mean, what do you want to happen here? Like, I don't understand what any of that even has to do with taking your kid out of school and putting them in private school, which is not a problem, but you're saying other people shouldn't do it unless they're in your exact circumstances. Like, she's just not making sense here.
Black children in the city of Chicago travel outside of their neighborhoods on average 2 hours more than any other comparative demographic.
I totally understand the point that you're making, But I do wonder, do you regret your own rhetoric here?
Regret rhetoric. What I have said are facts. Again, I'm a history teacher.
I think
before,
that
hold on
the
for a
rhetoric
second,
that I'm.
Abby.
Well, let me explain my question. Let me just explain my
I understand
question.
quite clearly what you're
What I'm
saying.
asking is that you're describing a very nuanced issue here. I understand that. I understand the history of segregation in the school system, but at the same time, what I'm trying to ask you is, do you think that your rhetoric at some point went too far when you are making a choice, because perhaps I assume you can afford to do that, that a lot of Chicago parents don't because they can't afford it. And proponents of school choice say the state should have a role in helping those families who can't afford it make the same choice that you did for your family.
So a couple of things, Abby. It is nuanced in Chicago. Like I've said, we have been destabilized and defunded in our black community.
Yeah, you see how she keeps bringing that up? Now, that point, here's the thing. If you want to claim this is a valid point, which honestly I'm not sure that it is, I don't believe it is, at least in terms of the education. Now, if you want to argue, of course, you need more than education to live in a community, sure. But we're talking about going to a different school, and let's presume for a moment that what she's saying is true, which I don't think it is. But let's presume for a moment that what she's saying is true, then this would indicate that school choice would be a good thing. So if there's problems within your local community, then you do school choice, you take your kid to a better school that has better opportunity, better educational record, just better accreditation, better sports programs, whatever they have, right? That's better than the public school choice. She's doing that because she recognizes that and she's pointing that out. But at the same time, she keeps talking about segregation and all of this stuff in the past, and none of it, again, it's not making sense, because literally in the same breath she's saying how racist school choice is, but she had to do it because of these particular circumstances. It's like, well, how do you know no one else had those circumstances that are like the exact same as yours? It is not making sense. It's pure hypocrisy, plain and simple.
When people speak of choice, they are speaking of two different things that are of comparative nature. What we are faced with in Chicago is an absence of a choice, is an absence of resources.
But she's basically saying, well, her circumstances are so bad that she has to do it. Whereas these other people, according to her, based off of whatever arbitrary benchmark she comes up with, their life and their education system and their healthcare system and everything is good enough to where they shouldn't have to do it, so they shouldn't. But with her, Chicago's so bad, she has to. And other similar people in South Chicago have to too. I don't buy it, y'all. I'm not buying it.
And furthermore, school choice in this country has been anchored to a very racist and angry right wing. I can show you
I told you.
a host of emails that have come to me and my family detailing that level of violence and racism. So if the choice movement does want to move away from their angry and violent rhetoric, I might add, then they would do themselves a favor and reject the rhetoric of the right that tells us that history is not important. I understand the impact of segregation in Chicago, the impact of destabilization in Chicago, and I face that along with over 90% of my neighbors, and that the school that is supposed to be down the street for the cop that lives across the street from me, or the retired teacher and her family that lives next door to me, that's not afforded to us. So when we talk about rhetoric, we also have to talk about the historical record, and the historical record is very clear. The school choice movement was a cudgel for integration in this country. That is a fact. Number two.
So she wants to keep focusing on how school choice was this horrible racist thing. But again, she's doing it, and she wants to keep getting into how racist it was and how the right wing, I guess, needs to denounce them. None of this stuff makes any sense. Like, what does this have to do today? Like, clearly you're doing this, but she's acting like, well, I didn't have a choice. Like, it doesn't make any sense, y'all.
The destabilization of black spaces throughout this country has been reprehensible.
So now is the stabilization of black spaces throughout the country. At first it was Chicago, now it's throughout the country. So I'm black and I'm okay. Most of my black friends and family are okay. I don't know what the hell she's talking about. Now, does that mean that it's not destabilized anywhere? No, because I know that it's destabilized in some ways in Chicago, but she's not talking about why it's destabilized. It's stabilized mainly because there's a bunch of crime in Chicago and illegal immigration and stuff like that. Which, I mean, who's to blame for that? Like, we not getting into that in this video, but I'm just saying, like, what do you want to do? Like, okay, if it's destabilized, whatever reason, whether it's destabilization or you just freaking feel like it, it should be your prerogative.
And it is most acutely felt with families who want to send their children to public schools. As I've said before, my children do attend public schools. My son, he has the opportunity to play sports at a school. Sports, by the way, that are not offered at our neighborhood school.
There it is. She wants the big time NFL player, soccer player, NBA player. I don't know what sport this child is playing, but that's what she wants. So as soon as she started seeing that green, I guarantee you some freaking dollar signs, some dollar bills showed up in her eyeballs, and she was like, okay, I don't care nothing about this. We just gonna deal with this backlash because it could net me a bunch of money in the future. That's all she cares about. Of course, it's definitely not about the kids. It's not about the teachers. It's really about her. That's really all this is about.
Or any school close to our address. Again, students in Chicago, especially black students, on average, travel almost 2 hours back and forth to school. So the real scandal, Abby, is why in 2023, black families in Chicago and across this country have to deal with such severe inequities and such high stakes.
I totally agree that that is a scandal.
Okay, so she wants to talk about inequity. That's all this conversation has been about for her, not about the fact that, hey, you're literally going against the principles that you strongly and staunchly advocate for, being a complete hypocrite.
But I also think that what you just described for your son is choice that you made for your family, and I think that's what your critics are pointing out here. But Stacey Davis Gates, I do appreciate you coming on here tonight, and I also want to just say that
yeah, okay, that's pretty much the end of it. So, guys, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Total hypocrisy. Everything that anybody wants, that you want, like, this is the strategy. Like, okay, have something that you support. Look up a history of racism being connected to it. Therefore, it's bad. And everybody like, oh, yeah, this is horrible. But then when it's something that you want for yourself and your family to better your own life and your family's life, then all of a sudden, like, oh, well, there's an exception and all these reasons make it okay. But anyone else is supporting segregationists in Jim Crow era. Guys. Like, and you know, the conservatives and Republicans are so bad. Like, they need to separate school choice from all of the racism and how the hell are they supposed to do that? Like, somebody explain that to me. How are you going to separate that? Because the only person who's making that connection is her. She's making a connection herself. It doesn't make any sense if anybody just decides, you know what, there's better opportunity at this school, so I'm just going over here, and you sit up here calling it racist and segregationist and all of this stuff. Like, there's literally nothing anybody can actually do to prevent you from saying that and feeling that way and that being historical. It is history, so you can't change the history. Nobody can change it. But in modern times, that doesn't even mean anything now. If you want to go somewhere else that has a better opportunity, you can. But you're still an advocate against it. So unless you change your advocacy, then you're pretty much just marking yourself, branding yourself permanently as a hypocrite, as far as I'm concerned. There you go, guys. This lady, Stacey Davis. Total hypocrite. Totally ridiculous. She could care less. She has a look on her face like, yeah, I know I'm busted. So what? What y'all gonna do? Like, you gonna pull up? That's the look she got on her face. Like, what y'all gonna do? Okay? So, y'all, no respect for me at all. Let me know what y'all think. Do y'all support? Do y'all see where she's coming from? Is it not hypocritical to anyone viewing this video? Y'all let me know. If you enjoy it, y'all know what to do. Thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. I'm Rashad, the Black Anomaly. We out.